after starting our 5th year of homeschooling, we have actually made the decision, and a big decision, to send our kids back to public school. So whether you're new here and you are maybe considering the same thing or considering the opposite thing, you're public schooling and you want to homeschool, or you're one of my longtime viewers and you have followed our homeschool journey and you are like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I figured it was time to give you my thoughts and some explanation and just the stage of life we're in and why we made this decision. So let's go back into why we chose homeschooling. So if you are new or haven't been around that long, I have 3 kids. I have a 7th grade daughter, a 5th grade daughter, and a 1st grade son. And my oldest daughter went to public school through, I think we pulled her out her 3rd grade year. And so she had a couple years of public school experience. My 5th grade daughter went to public school for like 1 month, her kindergarten year. That was during COVID times and shutdown times. So she didn't truly have a real school experience because it was like 10 kids in the class. They were wearing masks. It was very weird and limited. So really only my oldest daughter had a public school experience. But we have had kids in public school. So like just throwing that out there, like this is not some of my kids' first time. Also, my kids have gone to summer camp multiple years, and not that summer camp is like school, but like the process of like waking up, getting ready, packing lunches, being gone all day. All 3 of my kids have done that for multiple years. And so as well as my kids have gone to co-op classes where it is being taught by somebody else. They're gone for a couple hours. Like they have had experiences where I think I want to be sensitive when I'm talking about things to where other kids may not have had those experiences. Not every homeschool looks the same. Not every kid has experienced different things, like actually going to public school and transitioning to homeschooling. So like we've had a lot of experiences. And when I decided to homeschool my 2 daughters at that point, my son was a baby, there was just a lot of different dynamics going on. The world changed. I started working from home where I had worked out of the home for so many years. And I still work from home. So that too, if you're new here, I work from home full-time, remote, and I do travel for work as well. So when we made the decision to homeschool, it was not an easy decision. It was something we thought about, and my husband and I, our family, we really talked about. We obviously talked about it with our kids, but they were younger, and so as much as their opinion mattered, it was weighted way much lower because of how young they were. There was a lot of like environmental factors going on, like outside factors, like politics and things that were happening in the schools. And we lived in a city that had a really large school district, huge school district, and the schools were they're still overcrowded. And if we lived in Las Vegas, and I grew up and I went to all the schools there and all the high schools there, and my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, went to the school systems there. And just my kids weren't even in like the traditional public schools. They were like in a charter school. And so it was like a little bit different of an experience, but just a lot of things happening. As well as in that moment, I did not want my kids sitting in a desk or in a classroom where they're supposed to be talking to other kids and they're wearing face masks. And I'm not getting into like health and concerns and any of that. I'm just saying, if they're going to sit in a room with kids but be blocked by masks and like face protectors, like why are you there? And so there were so many factors as to why we started homeschooling. My oldest daughter was not enjoying it. She didn't want to go to school, and it was the constant, my stomach hurts, I don't want to go. And it was just like it all kind of like bubbled up and fell into place, and it worked out better for us because I was working from home. I did have a baby. I had a lot of family support for homeschooling, so I had a lot of help. And so it just all worked out. Like a thought popped in my head, and I started researching homeschooling, and I had reached out to people I knew who were doing it, and everything just lined up and it just made sense. And that's what we did, and we fell in love with it. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I don't love homeschooling or see the benefits of it. There are huge benefits to homeschooling, and if you can and if you want to, I think you should try it. And our family was extremely successful homeschooling. My kids thrived and we loved it, and we still love it. And so don't think I'm going to sit here in this video and bash homeschooling. I'm not. There are faults in public education, and it's a flawed design, and it needs serious improvement. And I do think most kids are going to benefit with homeschooling. I think you're always going to get a good benefit if homeschooling's done the right way. Now, again, we are going into our 5th year homeschooling, and it's almost like the people who are having their first kid and they're like, my kid's never gonna do that. I'm never gonna do this with my kid. And then they have kids and you're like, yeah, told you so. Like, you just don't know what to expect, right? And so, like I said, we jumped into homeschooling and we've absolutely loved it and thrived. And then 4 years later, we are having huge life changes to us, where we moved cross country. In the first move, we moved where we had no one. We had no family there. My husband and I both work, and there was no homeschool community that we were used to. So it was almost like we got so isolated, and that is when something really big clicked in my head, because you do hear the stereotypical, like, homeschoolers aren't socialized, there's not enough things for them to do. There are places and communities where there is not a homeschool community, or there's not a big one, or there's not enough events, or people don't want to be around and doing things, or people live too far away to do that. And so I saw where some of those stereotypes could come from, and we were living in it. My kids were home a lot of the day. And if you're a homeschooler, you know, like, coursework only takes an hour for, like, younger kids and a couple hours for older kids. And so the majority of the day, my kids had nothing to do. And I have never tried so hard to, like, build a community and for my kids to get friends. They were in every single activity we could find, and we just couldn't find that community. And I know some of you may watch me that know when we were in North Dakota or lived around us, and I'm not trying to be mean or rude at all, but when we came from something so large and big, and we're in such a successful homeschooling community, and then we went to nothing, and we felt like it was a struggle. And that's just not how we are. Our kids are very social. They want to be with friends, and they want to get their schoolwork done, and they want to go be a kid. And not having those opportunities, it was almost like, well, you know, schooling's fine. Like, we get our schoolwork done, but then what? And my work schedule changed. And so even though I'm home, I'm still working. And so I was really struggling, like, doing extra things with them. And like I said, we put them in every activity we could, any social thing we were going to, just to get them out, and it just, like, was not working. And just other things were not working. That wasn't the only thing not working in North Dakota. Like, there was a lot of struggles we were going through. And so obviously now we moved to Washington, and we have family here, and it was like a complete, like, 180. If you guys, you know, I know a lot of you have reached out and you're like, wow, you seem so much happier. Like, we are. Like, this is where we were meant to be. That whole thing we went through, it was for a reason. We were supposed to be here. And it truly, like, shows that now. Like, this is, like, what we were meant to be. We were meant to be with our family here. We were meant for our kids to grow up with their cousins. And, like, it just fit. Like, the puzzle just, like, fit instantly. And so with that, like, we moved, right? And we started homeschooling. So in July, we had all of our homeschool stuff. We're like, let's try it out. And again, it works. Like, the curriculum we're using works. And I know some of you have asked me, like, how's BJU going? It went great. It's absolutely fabulous. If we continued homeschooling, 10,000% I would say we would keep BJU because it supported me as a busy mom, as a working mom. My kids were learning really great information. They really liked the format of the video lessons. They were getting done with school and then still had the whole day. And so we moved here during summer. And so, you know, their friends and cousins are off school. Well, as the school year started approaching, it was like, okay, so now what is this going to look like? Because right now everyone's off, everyone's, you know, able to hang out. What will it look like when school starts? And them talking with their, you know, their family and their friends, and it's like, well, they all go to public school. And so it's like my kids started asking questions like, well, could I go to school? How are the schools here? What would it look like if we stopped homeschooling? And so my husband and I were already talking about it because of our experience in North Dakota. And even if we would have stayed in North Dakota, we probably would have made a similar decision because I'm like, I need these kids around other kids. I need them to be around other humans. Like as much as I think family is important and like I want us, like me and my husband, to be the source of truth for our kids and like the safe place for our kids, I'm also a realist, and like our kids need to experience other people, other peers their age and other adults, and they need to experience life. I have a kid that is 5 years away from being an adult and that is wild, but I needed to like be like, wow, like we have our kids for a very short time, which homeschooling is great to get more time with your kids. And I felt like that. I got so much extra time with my kids that I normally would not have gotten. But them just being bored, laying around all day, not doing anything, like it was something my husband and I were like, this is not benefiting them. They may benefit from going to school. Yes, there's cons, and I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm blinded. There's nothing wrong with public schools. There's plenty wrong with public schools, and there's a lot of nerves and anxiety I have and like thoughts I have, and like maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I don't want to send my kids away all day. But it was already in our minds. And then when we moved here and then our kids started asking and talking about it, you know, it's turned into a really big discussion. So again, we started the homeschool thing. We're like, this is what we're going to do. And we really analyzed each one of our kids individually. It was not a everyone goes or no one goes type of conversation. It was like, what's going to be best for each kid? What will the benefits and cons be for each kid? What are the struggles going to be? And how can we make this work? Because it is a huge life change, transitioning from homeschool to public school. And I think I'm going to do that in a separate video because this video is probably going to be long enough, me just talking. But I don't want anyone to think that homeschooling or public schooling, one is easier than the other. They both come with different challenges. And there's things that homeschooling makes easier, like schedules and routines and things like that, where public school may ease up some like stuff for like a mom. Like, yes, now I have to worry about drop off and pick up and packing lunches, but there's a good part of my day where I'm by myself and can do other things. And so I'm going to talk about like the whole transitioning and how we prepared and like that kind of stuff. But our decision was on each individual kid and their thoughts and wants, and some realism too, because unless there was if they wanted to go to public school, it wasn't going to be like, well, you can go try it for a couple days, and then if you don't want to do homework, you can homeschool. Like they had to understand the requirements of going to school. And so it was like, look, you're going to be at school all day, you know, for 6 hours, and then you may have homework when you come home, or you probably are going to have homework, and then you're going to have activities, and then you're still going to want to hang out with your friends, and you still have to get your chores done. So I really, especially with my older daughters, I'm like, look, like all this free time is not going to exist. You need, you know, the sleeping in, gone. The, you know, kind of being not lazy, but like no urgency, gone. Like you have things that are due, you have other things that are required. It's not mom grading your papers anymore. And so a lot of real talks with my kids on like what was going to be hard. And again, understanding how each of them individually was going to be impacted both negatively and positively. So each one of my kids is completely different. If you're a mom of multiple kids, you know there are vast differences in their education, in their skill sets, in their attitudes. And so we did make the decision for all three to go back to school, but it was based on different things, which I know maybe sounds weird. Even though, yes, all three of my kids are going back, it was an individual decision for each kid, and an awareness of what the benefits and the cons were going to be for each kid, and how we were going to deal with that. Another big thing was obviously so they could go to school with their cousins. And this has been something my husband and I have always wanted. We wanted our kids to grow up with family and cousins. Like, it's just, well, now that we have it, like, it is the coolest thing ever. And if you have that experience, like, you know how amazing it is. And if you don't and you can do it, like, I would do it, because like our kids have, like, we say like siblings are built-in best friends, but cousins are like an extension of that. And like, there's so many of them here. And now that they all get to go to school together, because that was the other thing, was, you know, getting to go to school together with their cousins, and this being like a long-term thing. Like, it's not like, oh, we're just doing this for fun for a year. Like, no, this is like the long-term plan. Like, if we're going back to school, and as long as there's no like safety type issues, or, you know, things like that that are making it negative, our kids and our family all get to like grow up together and go through these stages of life together. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, so like, we have all of our kids going to the same schools, and it's just really fun. And I talked about this in my other, I talked actually about this first in my membership channel. So if you're one of my members, you already kind of knew this was coming. But like, we found the, what is it? The tribe that a mom is supposed to have, like, when she has kids. Like, we found it. Like, it's just like such a cool thing we have going on with our family here and the kids here. And it's like just a constant like balance of like, we know all of our kids are like supported in the best way, and they all, again, just get to go through this life together. As many of you know, like, when we were in North Dakota, my work schedule changed. When we came to Washington, it kind of switched back, just meaning like schedule wise, like the hours I work. But here's the thing. Even if my kids woke up at, we'll say, 9 a.m., got school started by 10 a.m., I have to still work till 2 o'clock. And so there's hours of the day where my kids are kind of just like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're waiting around for mom to work. And like, I have just ridiculous amounts of mom guilt constantly, because it is hard being a working mom. It is hard being a mom in general. And I'm not saying my heart is harder than any of your hearts. It's just different. And I do have constant mom guilt. I'm constantly battling being a working mom and choosing priorities. And I know when I can't give my kids what I want to give them. And that was something I dealt with a lot in North Dakota. I felt extremely isolated, extremely alone, and it constantly battling this like, am I doing enough? No, you're not doing enough. You're not doing a good job at this. Where now it's like, I don't feel isolated anymore. I feel like I have a ton of support. I'm literally living the best life I think I could live, I think my kids could live, but I still work. And I don't want to quit my job, but I do know where I'm lacking in. And unfortunately, I do think at this point right now in our lives, our kids going to school is the best option. I can't give them exactly what they need right now, and that's okay. I think the years we got homeschooling were absolutely amazing. We built such strong bonds, and I think those years really gave me the time with my kids to like really instill values and talk about things, and those don't go out the window when public school started. And that's the thing, like, I'm still like literally concerned with like, how many bites of your sandwich did you have today? How many times did you go to the bathroom today? Like, oh, you know, what happened when you did this? Like, did you raise your hand? Like, I'm just so like hyper like concerned, like every part of what happened in their day. And we talk about it every single day. And because I get off so early, right? Like, I can pick them up from school, and then we have hours to talk before dinner, and then we have hours to talk after dinner. So I don't feel like we're missing any time. Like, I actually feel like instead of me sitting in my office and them sitting in the living room watching TV is no different than them actually being at public school. And them being at school, they're, socializing, learning, like all the things. And again, I'm not saying that public school is teaching the best of the best and that all of the social experiences are great, because they're not. And here's the thing, like I already know my kids were probably getting a better education homeschooling, right? Like I could hand pick the curriculum, I could customize it to them. They're not getting exactly that, but also the schools here are different. And that's the thing, I was able to keep my oldest daughter on her path. Her goal with homeschooling is she wants to graduate early. So she's a year ahead in math than like what a typical grade level she was at. So they put her in a higher level math and she's still on her same pathways. And they have college programs where she can go to college during high school. And so I feel like all of our goals are still in existence, and all of our values and all of our thoughts, and we are very open and honest. Like here's the thing, like we're not sheltering our kids, and again, they live in the real world, and my kid will be out. I don't know if she'll be out of my house in 5 years. It's not like it's a requirement, but she'll be an adult in 5 years, meaning she can make her own decisions in 5 years. She needs to understand what is out there, and she needs to make her own judgment on that, right? And so yes, are there bad things in schools that I may not agree with? 100%. Are there things I really don't want my kids to see? 100%. But me keeping them out of school doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And so I feel like we have had enough time and opportunity and continue the talks and the education around all of those things. So really what it came down to is the kids wanting to go back to school, us being in a different phase of life, us being in a new part of life, and really weighing the pros and the cons. And at this point in time, public school was the best of the option. And I've talked about this every single year because we reconsider homeschooling or public schooling every single year. It is a conversation we have. In some years, it's super easy. Nope, we're homeschooling. Other years, it's more difficult of a decision. And this year, it was a little bit easier of a decision to go the public school route. And so will you see me next year saying we're homeschooling our kids again? Possibly. Or will we talk in 5 years when my daughter's graduating from a public high school? Probably too. I don't know what will happen in our life. Just like a year ago, I didn't know we were going to be moving across country twice. I had no idea where we would be right now. I would have laughed if you would have told me you're going to get to raise your kids with your best friend and all their cousins. Like, no way did that seem plausible. And here we are, and we're doing it. And just like when I decided to homeschool, if you would have asked me 6 months before that, I'd have been like, no, why would I homeschool? So if you feel like you're ever pressured one way or the other, don't believe that. There's pros and cons to both. And again, I think homeschooling is a really cool experience. I think my kids benefited a lot from it. I think I was able to, again, just spend more time than I normally would have, and still more values at an earlier age. But again, I know what the real world is, and they're going to have to deal with things in the real world. Just like I've always said, public school is not off the table. Going back to homeschooling is not off the table. If my kids complain because they have homework every night, they're not going to go back to homeschooling. It would have to be like, again, a valid reason. Like why would homeschooling at this point benefit you more than public school? And again, in the scenario we're in right now, it wouldn't, unless there's like a safety concern going on or like something like that. So like I said, I'll probably talk more about like how we transition, because there is a transition and we are still going through that transition. There was a transition for us as parents, obviously for my kids, like for our household, I'm still kind of like figuring out all of that. So I'll probably make more on that. And then obviously if you guys have like specific questions, you can leave those down below, and I'll do like a follow-up video, like talking more about it. I'll do an update, all of those things. So yeah, that's probably like some pretty big news. And that's probably why you've seen me shift away from homeschooling content. One, because honest to God, like when we started our homeschool in July and my daughters just started using BJU, like it just worked. Like it was super, super lovely and easy. And like I said, if we were still homeschooling, that's the curriculum we'd be using. my son, I was still like trying out different things, wasn't really loving everything, but because I knew the possibility of public school, I really wasn't stressing about it. But like other than that, I just didn't have anything to say. And that's the thing, I don't really like showing my kids in videos. And so when it comes to like talking about their homeschool day, like if they're not in the video, it kind of doesn't make sense. So that is why I've kind of shifted away from homeschool, because we're not at this point in time, and we're going to be transitioning more into like daily life. So whatever you guys want to see, leave it down below in the comments. I'm still here. I'm still who I am and have been in the last 5 years of videos. So thank you all so much for being here. And if you're new, join me along. I'll be giving updates. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll chat soon. Bye.